Exactly 51 weeks ago, so can we call it a year? President Joe Biden signed the CHIPS Act, meant to bring high-tech semiconductor manufacturing back to America.
You know, the CHIPS and Science Act supercharged our efforts to make semiconductors here in America. Excuse me, those tiny computer chips, smaller than a fingertip, that are the building blocks for our modern economy, powering everything from smartphones to dishwashers, automobiles.
Well, the president was pretty fired up about getting such a landmark deal through Congress.
Today is a day for builders. Today, America is delivering. And I honest to God believe that 50, 75, 100 years from now, from people who will look back on this week, they'll know that we met this moment. Today I'm signing the law of the CHIPS and Science Act, a once-in-a-generation investment in America itself, a law that the American people can be proud of.
And so those comments were from a year ago, last August. It's potentially a huge deal for Oregon and its large semiconductor companies, places like Intel, Analog Devices, and others. So let's do a quick review. The act makes available a huge pool of money for semiconductor expansion, $52 billion. Companies can apply for some of it to help fund their expansion of advanced manufacturing in the U.S. The act also includes $24 billion in tax breaks, where companies can apply to get back roughly 25% of what they spend on that expansion. On top of that, Oregon's legislature set aside roughly $500 million in a variety of grants, loans, and incentives to help semiconductor companies expand here. And this week, the governor awarded Intel $90 million, but did not say exactly what it will be used for. Which is why Oregon Senator Ron Wyden held a news conference with other politicians today to celebrate the one-year anniversary and what is already being done in Oregon. He believes it's already spurred growth amongst the big semiconductors in our state.
Semiconductors have had a banner week in Oregon. If you add up what's happened in the last week alone, the announcement at Intel, major new capital investment in Hillsboro, potential for thousands of new good-paying jobs. Last week, Analog Devices provided the latest example of our state's pivotal role, announcing a $1 billion expansion at the Beaverton campus. Big win for the metro area.
All right. And Intel, by the way, won't say exactly what its expansion plans are, but we did get a look at their air quality permit application. It shows the company expects to double the amount of greenhouse gases that it releases at its factories in Aloha and what used to be called Ronler Acres in Hillsboro. So it's a good guess that it's going to be big, probably really big. Analog Devices announced last week that they would spend $1 billion to expand their semiconductor wafer fab in Beaverton. They sent us these pictures as well. The company currently has about 950 employees in Oregon and says the new investment will mean hundreds of more jobs. The company's vice president of fab operations, Fred Bailey, said the CHIPS Act helps a lot.
I want to talk a little bit about the CHIPS Act and CHIPS and Science Act. What's been done on this really enabled factories, companies like Analog Devices to make these investments for the industry, for the community. And I think if we look, beyond the CHIPS and Science Act, the tax credits that come along with this. So Senator Wyden, I really want to pass along a thanks from all of Analog Devices in the semiconductor industry. That's a huge part for us.
Okay, so we've seen that the promise of the CHIPS Act money is moving some of these big companies. But has any of that federal money flowed into Oregon or any other state for that matter? I asked Senator Wyden about that today.
There's been a lot done by the state as a result of the CHIPS Act, trying to position ourselves for the future. But what have we gotten from the federal government and from the CHIPS Act? Have we gotten a single dollar out of that yet?
Pat, I'll let the companies speak for themselves, but you just heard from Analog, for example, how important those tax credits are. The $24 billion tax credit package that I put together.
Oh, Senator Wyden. That, my friends, is what we call a skillful pivot. The question was, has any CHIPS Act money arrived in Oregon? The answer was tax credit promises have made some companies do things. As a follow-up, the senator's staff reminded me that U of O, OSU, and PSU each got $1 million for research grants that were technically part of the CHIPS Act. Okay, but the big money has not arrived. I'm not trying to be critical. I just wonder whatever happened to the bags of money promised by the feds. I emailed the Commerce Department to ask when we could expect to see some of the money, and they were so impressed they ignored me. I did some research, though, and I found out that the government does hope to start announcing winners this fall. We'll be watching to see if any of that actually makes its way to Oregon.